Hey mamas, if it's your first time giving birth, I know the big question that you might have is what is it going to be like? So I'm doing a 3-part video series for you, walking you from beginning to the end of labor. If you are new to my channel, thanks so much for stopping by. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell so you don't miss any of my future videos, and thanks for watching. So your due date is just around the corner and you are super eager to meet baby, and you're noticing some symptoms of what you think are labor coming on. Now, a lot of times women confuse early labor with pre-labor, or what we call prodromal labor. So prodromal labor is when you're having symptoms of early labor, which I'll talk about, but they're not progressing, they're not consistent enough. So let's say you're having contractions, but they're not, close, they're not getting closer together, and they're not building in intensity. They're 5 minutes apart, then 30 minutes apart, then a couple minutes apart, and so they're not really consistent. You're still able to talk through them really easily. There's not any kind of progressing. So that's what we would call prodromal labor, and it can go on for like a few days, unfortunately, and so it's uncomfortable. You're cramping, you might have diarrhea, you're just not like super comfortable. But as you notice your labor or those contractions start picking up and start building in intensity and getting closer together, you are going to be entering what we call early labor. So as your early labor progresses, your contractions are going to be about 30 to 45 seconds long and about 5 to 30 minutes apart. And I know at this point it's super exciting, of course it is, and we really want to focus in on those contractions, but I really want to encourage you to try to not obsess over those contractions. And what I mean by that is sometimes early labor can be long, and so when we focus in on those contractions, and really trying to track them, it kind of makes it seem longer. So what I encourage moms to do often is just to record 4 or 5 contractions together at one point, just to show where you are at, and then wait a while and wait until you kind of sense or feel something changing, like maybe your contractions you feel like are closer together, then time another 4 or 5 together, and then wait a while. So that way you're not obsessing about those contractions, and you're able just kind of do something else and distract yourself during that early labor phase. So a lot of times during this early phase of labor, women will lose their mucus plugs. Now, sometimes they'll lose their mucus plugs a few weeks in advance, or they'll lose it during this early phase. What it doesn't mean that you are about to have the baby. You don't need to rush off to the hospital. It does mean birth is imminent, that it is coming, and that you'll meet your baby soon, but it doesn't mean that you have to rush off to the hospital. Now, some of you might be thinking, well, what even is a mucus plug? What a mucus plug is not, it's not a cork holding the baby in, which I've heard some women think it is. It really is mucus that is around the cervix that's keeping the bacteria out of the womb. So yeah, it's not a cork that the baby is going to kick out and be like, hey, I'm coming. It's really there just to make sure that no bacteria is getting into the womb to hurt your baby. So if you're wondering what to look for in losing your mucus plug, I'll tell you a little bit about what it does look like. It will look kind of like egg whites, where it's that gooey, sticky, opaque kind of characteristics to it. Sometimes it's white, sometimes it's tinged with blood. And it could be bright red, it could be a darker red, but it's just because of, as your cervix, as it's dilating, those blood vessels are breaking, and so it's just leaving little bits of blood in your mucus. So when you wipe and you notice a big glob of goo kind of, and maybe it's tinged with blood, or maybe if you look in the toilet and you've felt something drop out of you, and you look down and you see something floating in the water that looks like egg whites and, I don't know, jam mixed together, it might be your mucus plug. And you can always take a picture, text it to your doula or to your OB and be like, hey, what is this? I'm sure they've seen a ton. As a doula, I've seen a few myself. So yeah, if you're not sure, you can always ask someone. But you don't need to be worried about the blood unless it's a stream of blood coming out or a lot of blood. Then you really want to like check in with your care provider and see if you need to go in. But otherwise, that's your mucus plug, and it's pretty exciting. All right, so during this early phase of labor, your contractions are really more annoying than they are like painful. And so usually during this phase, you're able to talk through your contractions, walk through them, and in between contractions, you're like totally normal. But as you start getting towards the end of this early phase of labor, you might start getting those stop in your tracks kind of contractions where you're like, oh my gosh, that was like a lot more intense than I thought it was going to be. So as you get towards the end of this early phase of labor, it's a really good idea for you to be practicing those breathing techniques, taking those deep de-stressor breaths. And if you are wondering what a de-stressor breath is and how to do it, I will link the video above here that I did for you guys to check out and learn how to have a de-stressor breath. But like I said, now is a good time to start getting into that like ritual of doing that, and maybe your partner can start helping you get through those contractions. So one tip that I do have for you guys is to try to spend your early labor at home, where you can rest, where you can be in the comfort like of your own space, where you can have your partner close by, you can have access to water or access to food in your fridge. Just be somewhere really, really comfortable, and that usually happens to be at home with your partner. And make sure that you do notify like all the people who are going to like take part in your birth. So definitely notify your doula, definitely notify like the L&D nurse who's on call, notify family. If you need to get a babysitter, now is a really good time to do that. So you should be notifying people who are going to have a part in this birth. Last but not least, as you go through this phase of labor, be so excited because you are going to meet your baby soon. So early labor can take a while. It can be really uncomfortable. It can make you feel anxious, super excited. But yeah, just remember that at the end of this whole beautiful journey, you get to meet your baby. So thanks for watching. I hope these things have helped you in getting a good understanding of what early labor will be like, what your mucus plug is, and I will see you in the next video.